Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of August the 14th till 20th, 2023. We have quite a powerful and very intense sky at play, and also this is one of those weeks where a lot of fated energies, fated patterns, and also invitations from the universe for us to choose a specific path for our future might be at play. And this is because this week is host of a lot of very important energies. One of them is without a doubt the new moon taking place in the sign of Leo on the 16th of August, but also we have the sun squaring Uranus, which in itself is not a very rare conversation. It happens more than once every single year, but the specifics of this conversation are quite important. Then we also have a trine to the North Node, which is really, really important and can be quite fated. Then we have the sun meeting Black Moon Lilith in the sky, and so much more taking place. But of course, the feeling, how it feels at the beginning of the week and how it is going to feel towards the end of the week is gonna progress slowly but surely. So without further ado, let me share my screen and talk you through the astrology of this week. So we are at the 14th of August, so on Monday, the very beginning of the week, and that is very important because it's one of the main themes of this larger Venus retrograde at play here, where Venus does hold a trine to Chiron. Chiron also went retrograde. Now, this is the second trine that Venus holds through her retrograde with Chiron. She is going to be holding these conversations once again, a third and final time later on when she starts moving direct. But that's for another horoscope. For now, we are just looking at Venus trining Chiron in the present configuration. Now, as you can see, Venus also conjuncts the Sun. Venus conjuncted the Sun on the 13th, so today, the 13th of August. So that was quite important and revelatory. And also, it kind of put a lot of emphasis on this Venus retrograde, especially how these themes do play out in our lives individually. This is an aspect of clarity. When the sun heats it up, the sun adds a lot of fire energy here, so we feel this quite intensely. So by this time, all of us are kind of tuned into what the major topic, the major theme of this Venus retrograde is for our lives personally, individually speaking. Is it a relationship? Is it an energy returning from the past? Is it about a hobby, a creativity, a talent, a skill that you have that you want to find a way to express it? Is it anything to do with self worth? Is it anything to do with our physical bodies, how we look, our appearance? And why am I adding these issues? Because Venus holds a square all throughout her retrograde with various planets in the sign of Taurus. So, the element of Taurus is also very important here. And needless to say, Venus rules the sign of Taurus. So it's all about the Taurian issues coming up. But let's go back to Monday, the trine with Chiron. We understand at that moment that the intent, the divine intent, the evolutionary intent of this Venus retrograde in our lives is to heal something, is to transform something in a healing sense, either to regenerate or to get in the right mindset, the right feeling, the right attitude, the right expression of self-worth, for example, self-love. And for other people, this is the importance of self-love or the right measure of self-love. Because we might be thinking that, well, I love myself, don't I? But maybe our version of self-love is way too little, way too insignificant, or is highly contrasted by other emotions within us. And if that is the case, then we have to find a right balance. Because, for example, a strong embodiment, almost radicalization of humility, well, in one way that is absolutely a blessing. It is truth. It is a certain kind of equilibrium, spiritually speaking. But a person's modern life might not permit that to an ultimate embodiment. It might only permit it in principle, in ideal, in vibe, in frequency, but with limits to it, because a very humble attitude, for example, might be in a way self-defeating in certain industries and jobs, social media, stuff like that. So this is where we also process whatever this Venus retrograde is trying to suggest to us. So the way I explained it in this case, it is just a personal internalized way of expression, but we must not forget that Venus retrograde has a square to Uranus as well. Now, the square to Uranus is not very exact. It is, dying down because Venus is progressing backward. So she is actually perfecting her square with Jupiter towards the end of the week. Yet still, at the very beginning of the week, as she speaks in harmony with Chiron, she also squares Uranus. And Uranus brings the reality of it. The reality check, basically, the awareness that we cannot ignore. And as I said in my example, for some people, the awareness is that in this day and age and today, basically, because today Taurus is very much today, what we feel, what we experience, what we have or don't have today. So how are our deepest principles compatible with today? And even if we find a major incompatibility, it's all a question of adaptation, because both Leo and Taurus are fixed energies. So their biggest challenge is how to adapt gracefully, how to adapt, with measure, because sometimes the way these signs choose adaptation is radical, especially with Uranus and Taurus. This day is one reality, and then something happens and stirs up a big drama and causes the, let's say, natives or someone who has specific energies in their chart to try and do things radically 180-degree differently the next day. And I'm not saying that that doesn't work, but that takes a very heavy toll. Now, this Venus retrograde ultimately invites us to not really do that, to try and take it slowly, gradually integrate it. That's why, the Venus retrograde holds a how should I say this? A a window of timing where we can do this more comfortably than just from one day to the other. And this is exactly the trine to Chiron, where this trine is expressed 3 times during this Venus retrograde period. First time was when she just went direct in the sign of Leo. The second one is now, and the third one is when she's going to go direct. So these points are very, very important because they give a different expression of this energy. The first one is just the reality check, that what we're doing, how we are embodying certain principles is not very much compatible with our situation, with our local community, with the collective, with the times that we're living, with our whatever some kind of life specific that we're having. But we may not have understood exactly why. It just felt really off. It felt wrong. We just felt that we need a radical change. Now we can understand what that change is about. And the third time when this conversation is going to be held by Venus and Chiron, that might be a moment when it already sunk in, when we're already standing from a place of, I don't want to say healing, because this doesn't guarantee you full on healing, but a more healed attitude, position, etc., more balanced, more harmonious, more, Aries, self-serving, but not in the bad sense, but quite in the good sense, because even in spirituality, the very first duty is towards the harmony and, serenity of existence of the self, because ultimately that is what the creator intended for every being, to be able to live harmoniously, to exist harmoniously, whatever that harmony and balance means to that being personally, of course. So this is how I see this Chiron trine, and it's really, really important. Now, also, as I said, a day before we had the Sun and Venus conjunction. That was also important because it sheds a light on the themes. And it sheds a light on everything that our heart wants, desires, needs, our passion, our creativity, our desire, for example, for children in some people's cases, because Leo also rules that, self-expression, how to get out there, how to express something, speak something out. Taurus rules the voice, the throat. Yes, because both the Sun and Venus are square to Uranus at this time. So how to speak something out, and the light of the Sun and the heat of the Sun also, because this is a very strong fire energy. And for example, the way this played out in some parts of the world, for example, Hawaii, where Venus can represent value, and Venus in Taurus, someone's possessions, all what they accumulated all throughout their lives, their possessions, basically, their physical values, their, how should I say that, their estates or anything of that kind. And in Hawaii, the fires, the wildfires, like really, really raised the whole region, raised the whole area. Leo fire, Venus conjunct the Sun. And where Venus, we don't necessarily look at the physical house, but the values burst into flame. And as traumatic, as horrible, as incredibly painful that is for the people there, this also invites everyone to rebuild, to have a new chapter in their lives. And, Venus trine Chiron and the Sun trine Chiron, the compassion, a certain strength that people have, this is the moment to share with others who are less fortunate than them, or others who had everything taken away from them. So this also builds community, reshapes community. This shock, this horrible tragedy, in the very long run, also has a healing quality to it, because whatever people will rebuild, it is much more loving, it is much more solidary, and also like a strong personal lesson. Aries, they learn something from this, for that, a lesson which is only valid for them personally, but it is a very important karmic lesson for them. And of course, the Sun squares Uranus. But the Sun squaring Uranus, and we do need, before we move forward, I also want to show you another aspect, which is, so if you can see, we have this dwarf planet Orcus here in the sign of Virgo. Now, Orcus is very similar to Pluto. It is many times called anti-Pluto because it can truly, truly reveal where corruption, where falseness, where anything that doesn't serve the greater harmony lies, and what it is and the specifics. Pluto usually reveals it by destroying it, with Plutonian moments. Orcus usually replaces it, creates or retrains it. It alchemizes it deeper than Pluto. It transforms it. And this Orcus is also power, deity which punished oath breakers. So it holds a trine, an exact trine to Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet of truth and justice. And when Orcus converses in a harmonious way with Jupiter, this does mean that either legislation or in one way or another, justice is called upon. On a larger scale, very much possible with Virgo, because Virgo rules anything that has to do with medical institutions, medicine, anything that has to do with discrimination, with assessing a situation meticulously, revealing the technical details about a situation. So you can imagine what has to do with medical institutions immediately, what happened during the COVID, the World Health Organization, and all of that. And Jupiter brings the favorable law, brings the favorable legislation based on discovery, based on research, based on truth. And you can see this in social media and in many parts of the world where either the World Health Organization is severely challenged, almost to the degree that it's deemed a terrorist organization. It's not my opinion, it's just something that I saw, I read, I heard, so it's all over the TV. And justice with people who suffered unnecessary extreme measures during the COVID, their legal cases are being won. So this is one way that this energy can play. But now to move forward, so we're gonna move on the 16th of August, when of course we have that new moon in the sign of Leo. As you can see, the new moon is at 23 degrees of Leo, so it holds an exact square to the degree with Uranus. Now, a new moon, like always, is a creational energy. When the darkness of the moon is taking within herself a seed of intention to grow it further. But a new moon is also really, really good to cut things out from our lives. The way you can envisage the new moon is before it gets exact, the moon is like a very, very, very thin sickle, just a spark of its luminosity visible before it turns totally black. Now that sickle is really sharp, ethereally speaking, energetically speaking, karmically speaking, and that sharp sickle cuts whatever it is that you need to eliminate it from your life. And in the sign of Leo, well, usually that is something that comes from the heart. And as you can see, the new moon is tightly conjunct Lilith, Black Moon Lilith as well. So Black Moon Lilith can be toxicity. It can be my way or the highway. The very, very strong fixed urges, instincts, impulses that are already deep in the heart. If we lived a lifetime like that, it's not now when we're going to be all that much different. Yet Uranus challenges us to do exactly that. Be different, learn to be different, to release everything that is basically consuming us from our heart space. For example, an old love that we are obsessed about. This is the new moon where, yes, it has to exit from our life because it has an unhealthy grip and power over us. Or that unhealthy love can be relationship, person, hobby, anything that basically sparks your heart up. But it's also, something that I'm not saying it's impossible, but it doesn't serve our greatest good, so it needs to be released. And Uranus brings the awareness that you do need to release it. But this new moon is also very favorable for us to get into the right feeling, right mood, right Leo type of awareness about ourselves, where we might have had like certain kind of fears that I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not something enough. And the Uranian truth of the matter is that, well, you actually are. Maybe this was true at one point, that at one point in your life you weren't enough, but you can imagine how much training. And this is where let's divert from the new moon a little bit and look at Mars' trine, very also very tight, almost exact to Uranus. And Mars in Virgo is the mastery, is the work, is the repetition, is the meticulosity, is the effort and energy Mars that and the singularity that we invested into learning and integrating experiences. And the positive side of Virgo, where our minds actually labeled things. This is successful, this is not so much, this is working, this is good, this is not good yet. Our own contemplation, but from a very rational and very logical level. So however we made sense, we made logic of the trials and errors of our experiences. Now, all of those, Mars, trine, Uranus, made us grow, made us evolve. They added a lot of value onto us, Taurus. A lot of value that maybe is invisible to us because we were in the midst of the learning, of repetition, of the path of the monk, Virgo, ultimately. And how we grew, how we changed, how we became stronger kind of evaded us. But no problem at all, because comes such a new moon, and then it is revealed to us that we are not the past self. We are not that person who was not capable. We are that person who is capable now. So this new moon fights off the fear, fights off the shyness, for example, fights off the, where a being has its heart contracted because there was an experience which really, really, frightened them, traumatized them, or it was not the time and the inner forces knew it. So the bravery, the Leo moment was not there. But this new moon does challenge us to do exactly that, if that is the truth that sparks up in our heart of hearts. So we are invited to express that truth, to express whatever it is that our hearts tell us. Now, at the same time, this Uranus square does have another side to it, because it can challenge us to be patient a little bit. Because one of the ways just the Sun and Uranus square can play out is that, well, I know I'm good enough. I know that I have everything I need internally to go and do it, to be it, to whatever, to fulfill the desires of my heart's of heart. But why isn't what I need here yet? Why isn't the divine timing here yet? Why isn't life meeting me halfway yet? Why isn't the money that I need here yet? Why are the institutions or wherever resources have to come in, why are they stagnating? Because I want it now, I need it. Now, this might be without a shadow of a doubt the case in some people's lives, but again, the challenge of Uranus, we need to wait for the exact moment for the divine timing. Now, let's also add Black Moon Lilith into the picture, and where Uranus squaring Black Moon Lilith, it is exactly that. We need to release our self-centered, our selfish, our impatient tendencies, and really work with this energy on the terms of that energy. But let's now look at certain really positive sides of this new moon, where it does hold a trine with the North Node in the sign of Aries. Now, the trine with the North Node isn't exact. There's 3 degrees between them, but it's tight enough to be very, very relevant karmically. because whatever we do with this Uranian awareness, for example, the Uranian awareness can be to express your truth, to speak your truth, to speak your authenticity. Doing that can go a long way, because the North Node in the sign of Aries is everything about us, our individual stories, our individual path, our individual progress, our individual needs, the initiation to get where we need to get in life. Of course, individually, it depends where it is in your chart personally, but we can neither ignore that Aries is still Aries collectively. So it's very, very self-centered, and it's meant to be that. And of course, ultimately, that Black Moon Lilith is also trining the North Node in Aries, and it's also trining Eris, goddess of discord, uprising, rebellion. So it's very, very the birth of the self, basically. That's what this energy says, creative chaos that births something. And this Uranus can bring one level, one dimension of chaos. Eris can bring another dimension of chaos, but something is born out of it, a greater truth, a greater love, a greater stability. And let's not forget Chiron, healing, a healed state of our heart space. What healthy creativity, what healthy self-expression, and what healthy self-centeredness looks like. So that's where this energy is leading without a shadow of a doubt. And on a larger scale, we can also look at this as a fire grand trine, because this also trines the galactic center at 26, 27 degrees of Sagittarius, even though the trine is not very exact, but we can still consider it a grand fire trine. So the galactic center brings the divine truth, the divine justice, the divine creational energies. Like, the way to understand the galactic center can be very symbolic and from an astronomical perspective, because the galactic center is the black hole at the center of our galaxy that showers abundantly everything with neutrinos. It is like a fountain of neutrinos, and neutrinos are ghost particles which very rarely interact with physical particles. We can look at the neutrinos as exactly the ghost, the spirit, the divine spirit, the Holy Ghost, if you will, projected, radiated by the galactic center. So that is the spirit not yet made manifest. We are, let's say, tasked, if you will, to give a manifestation to the spirit, to the ghost particle, symbolically speaking, of course. And Aries, of course, the self, the head, the direction, but Leo, the heart, love. And we must not forget that our hearts are the most powerful organ or chakra, or call it whatever you want, that we possibly possess. And Pam Gregory, astrologer Pam Gregory, has a lot of info about the power and the strength of the heart. So moving on. Oh, and before I don't forget, I have a special video about this Leo new moon, which you can check out on my channel. I'll try to link in the description below. But I would also like to mention the Sabian symbol of this new moon at 23 degrees of Leo. It is an untidy man. Now, the untidy man symbol is, I see it as so very sacred, because it depicts a man who truly embraces his spiritual truth. It truly embodies the highest spiritual principles, which connects him, galactic center, very, very strongly to the divine, so much so that everything that has to do with matter, society, the earthly ways is very distant from the man. So, of course, he appears very, very untidy, unkept, basically, because he doesn't really care about what society thinks of him. He has his truth and lives it. Now, Uranus is squaring this. So as I said, we must find a balance, because just embodying spiritual principles is getting us nowhere right now, especially right now, because we need to create. We need to give a shape and form to the spirit. So we need to find a middle path. We need to find a balance. On one hand, all of us are that untidy man because we do need to feel through the most divine principles very strongly within our hearts. But at the same time, we're also challenged to work with the earthly, because how else can we alchemize it if we do not, if we are not also immersed into that? But immersion into the earthly does not mean from the perspective of fear or doom and gloom or the victim. That is exactly what we have to shed off quite, urgently. Because if we embody the fear, that's also heart-based energy, then we are just heading into the quicksand very, very deeply. And that's not a good idea. Especially that towards the end of the week, Mars is going to start opposing Neptune. So the elation, the fervor of this energy is going to change, you know. So if you want more details, just check out my new moon video. So let's move forward on the 17th, when we have the sun making a conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. We had the Venus conjunct the sun. So that revealed the heart-based themes and the Taurian themes of this larger Venus retrograde. Now, Black Moon Lilith conjunct the sun is a different energy because it sparks up Lilith. It sparks up her self-righteousness, her rebellious qualities, her temper, her impulse. So on the 17th, we are really, really invited to watch our temper, to watch what we speak, to watch what we express, to watch what we do, because it can go a little bit over the board. And both of these planets, Sun and Lilith, Lilith is not a planet, but anyway, are squaring Uranus. So again, we are invited to take measure, to apply certain self-discipline, because speaking our heart's truth, absolutely it is a must. But we're also invited to, if possible, um, have a certain disciplined attitude, how we speak it, what words we use, or instead of speaking any gesture, any reaction, anything that comes from the heart, But from a totally different perspective, this is also really, really important, because whatever, Lilith, I don't want to use this word, but I still have to, darkness, like envy, jealousy, how we react to injustice, everything that is basically very vile, very predatory in our hearts. The light of the sun, clarifies that for us. So that is very important to self-knowledge, to see where we can become aggressors, because not so long ago, Lilith trined Chiron, and Lilith will not resume her trine with Chiron. So that period revealed to us where we also have like venomous fangs, or where our aggressive power lies. Sometimes trying to Chiron puts us in the position of the aggressor, but in the sense that we are also invited to understand when it is we need to stand up for ourselves and push some things, some people, energies, ideas, contracts, anything away from us. But at the time of the Sun and Lilith conjunction, this is where we need to become aware exactly of our emotional weapons, of wherever it is that we are way too powerful or dangerous or can be aggressive way too much, in order to use that wisely. And then also at this date, um, we have Mars trining Uranus. And what is even more important, that this actually is a grand Earth trine, because both of these planets do trine Pluto as well. Now, their trine to Pluto is not exact, but it's an operational trine. And this can represent a massive breakthrough energy. Whatever this Mars is doing in Virgo, whatever that Uranus has done so far, all these years in the sign of Taurus, is now coming online. I cannot say that this is like an immediate breakthrough energy. On the 17th, 18th, there it is, your big breakthrough comes and end of story. But this starts like a chain reaction. It may be fated, or it may be, sorry, it may be built upon on the past. Because why the past? Because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is in shadow, so it will go retro. Not this week, but it will go retrograde. So the past, and Uranus, not this week, but Uranus will also need to go retrograde, and Pluto is retrograde itself. So the past, it may be built on the past, where whatever it is that you have done, your actions, your changes, your studies, whatever of the past, are now starting to pay off, are starting to add up, are starting to have a momentum of gravity which supports you, or which gets you to the breakthrough, or the stability, or something somewhere that you need in your life. So this is quite an important moment, and quite a favorable energy on the larger scale, on the long term, because something is created, something is getting a shape and form, something is embraced by matter, like a manifestation. And this energy, as I said, what we do with our heart space, our feelings, our darker feelings, or our creational impulses, this Pluto is conversing in a sextile, and the sextile is becoming exact with Neptune. So that's quite strong, quite powerful in an alchemical sense. Neptune is the dream, basically. The lucid daydream, or whatever our heart of hearts desires, the future that we want to live, that we want to experience, everything that is symbolic and meaningful to us on an emotional level, and also that is fated and karmic, because you cannot ignore Pisces, the karmic nuance of Pisces, and the karmic nuance of Pluto itself and Capricorn, the stage of manifestation. When these two speak in a sextile, dreaming is believing, dreaming is making it real. So a very, very strong alchemical energy. And like all alchemy, when you get the formula right, and the way you get the formula right is exactly distilling your feelings, that Leo energy, it starts coming into manifestation. It enters Tellur, it enters Malkuth, if that makes sense. So this is quite promising. We have a grand Earth trine, but also a Pluto sextiling Neptune. Of course, we had Pluto sextile Neptune the past couple of years while Pluto made his exit from Capricorn. But this is a different configuration. This is much more powerful in the short term because it starts something. Now let's get to the 18th of August, when we have Venus squaring Neptune. Of course, this square between Venus and Jupiter, so not Neptune, Jupiter, sorry, is going to be exact on the 22nd of August, so not this week. But we are already starting to feel the effects of the square. The square means justice, whatever justice means to us personally, in a very, very for some people, external justice and legal stuff and all of that. But mostly, this is like a very subjective energy. How would my life be fair, look like fair? look like the way it seems fair and righteous and just for me. So these are the effects of the square. But because Venus is holding this the second time, the square is held the second time when Venus is retrograde. Well, this is where we are invited to truly change what justice, righteousness, fairness means to us personally by putting our own truth onto the table, but also looking at what external reality is permissive of. Because if we do not take Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, Earth sign, if we do not take external reality into consideration, then we're just Don Quixote chasing the windmills. We need to also integrate what reality, what the now, what the present, what the collective, what external has to offer us. So I do see this energy as coming to an equilibrium. It might stir us up, but we must not forget Venus is trying to Chiron. The stir up is for us to find greater balance and for us to be able to support ourselves with that truth and justice of Jupiter. And we must not forget that these two planets are the lower Venus and the greater benefic. So their tension is for us to create greater benevolence in our lives. And I would like to move on towards the end of the week, so 20th, when we have a really powerful Mercury trining Uranus, but Mercury won't be able to perfect his trine with Uranus because he will go retrograde firstly, but it doesn't really matter because Mercury and Uranus are one each other's octaves. Uranus the higher octave, Mercury the lower octave. So this is very strong, intelligent energy. This is the energy where we figure it out. This is the energy where positive, favorable communication may come our way, offers, words, support from others, when the job interview works, when whatever we decide to express, to communicate, we speak works, when we listen to good advice, when we do complete something with our ingeniosity. So I just had a really bad mercurial moment here, but you get what I'm saying. When our breakthrough efforts do go a long way, when our, as I said, the path of the monk, slowly and surely repetition, that works. It leads us to a kind of breakthrough or the beginning of the breakthrough or something really, really positive that can play out in our lives as solution. But of course, Mercury is in shadow. So this can solve a lot of things pending from the past. But this is a really, really strong solution that we can integrate for a long term. Because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. Taurus is about the long term. It's permanent. It wants permanence. It wants for the rest of our lives. And Uranus revolutionized it, unsettled it. It caused earthquake, even literally, in its transit in the sign of Taurus. It caused a lot of disruption, but for us to be forced to figure it out, for us to try and embody everything that we need for that solution, all the effort, all the meticulosity, all the trial and error that we put into it in different various areas of our lives. But what's also more important is that the sun trines exactly the north node in the sign of Aries. This is beautiful. This is more like a feeling, but this is where we feel that we are moving forward. We feel that we're on the right path, north node in Aries, right? We feel that we took a right turn, a right direction. We do feel that something in life is coming together and it will advantage us. It will get us to where we need to be. Or this is like a really positive initiation, which has success to it. And of course, the sun in Leo, This can also represent a moment of pause, a moment of rest, a siesta, a delight, a holiday, something that delights us, something that makes our hearts of hearts shine and, sing with joy, whatever that means to us personally. But unfortunately, the other side of this energy is where Mars, yes, it is tightening its trine to Pluto, which is absolutely wonderful because these planets are also each other's octaves. Pluto, the higher octave, Mars, the lower octave. And together they co rule the sign of Scorpio as well. So this has a strong fated intensity to it, where if we just take Mars in the sign of Virgo, we're intensifying our meticulosity. We want to get it perfect. We want to get it right. We are taking into consideration everything, every element that we can. We are here splitting, but in a positive sense now. And Pluto, trying to Pluto, well, it's coming together perfectly. The change is here. We are the change. Our efforts, our energy, our work, our whatever Virgo element you'd like, we're doing in our lives, it's working. It's getting us there. But it is opposing Neptune. And Neptune brings the halt. Because when Neptune opposes Mars, it drowns it. This is where hold your horses and take a deep breath. Whatever you're doing, because Mars trine Pluto, but it is working, yeah. You're getting there, yeah. But don't obsess over it. Don't try way too hard. Don't, overdo it. So stop, take a pause, chill out. And also with Mars opposing Neptune, well, Virgo is ultimately the physical body. This is really, really good to tap into like certain kind of spiritual activities, like physical exercise combined with breath work, with intention setting, with like qigong, yoga, hiking, but when you are really connected to something. So spirituality and physical activity, uh, fusing them together can really do a lot of good. But also with Mars opposing Neptune, resting when you feel like it, when you need it, when your body needs, disconnecting your mind, because Mercury is also in the neighborhood, disconnecting your mind from overdoing it, from having a mental a neurological short circuit. That is also advised, and for certain people this is where they do need to go and have a health checkup, blood test, like hormonal analysis, because both of these signs, Virgo and Pisces, have to do with health, medical institutions, healthcare. Virgo might be the study of it. It might be the microscope, the laboratory. It might be microbiology, nurses, doctors. But Pisces is the hospital. Pisces is the pause for recovery. Pisces is the basically the larger expression of where medicine is going. So, Neptune there and uh, Mars opposing each other, standing across the sky from each other, thus point that taking care of our health and moments of detox, moment of release, moment when we do rearrange our daily routines so that it can also serve our inner beings, not just the busy Mars and Virgo expression that is favored. And last but not least, we must not forget that Pluto sextiles Neptune. So this is a very powerful alchemical aspect when sometimes this Neptune opposing Mars stops us to behold our manifestation, to behold how much power does our strive, our effort, our the energy and strength we put into transformation how much efficiency it has, how beautifully it's working. So there's also that side of this energy. And finally, I would like to show you something really, really beautiful from an astrological perspective, where there is a small power Ceres in the sign of Libra. Ceres is the asteroid of nurture, of grain, of how basically we feed our beings, and it governs like physical food as well. And Vesta is the protector of the household, the sacred flame in the sign of Gemini. So these two planetoid Ceres is a planetoid, Vesta is an asteroid, conversing together in a trine. This can mean so many beautiful things, where beautiful, empowered words feed the soul of another. Support, strength, and justice, Libra, coming from partnerships, new partnerships being born, or certain people in our lives making us feel safe, making us feel valued, inspiring us with the breakthrough, with the best opportunity. So this is one of those aspects where certain friends, certain people, certain communication can really, really go a long way. So sometimes the blessing in astrology is not in the big and major aspects. Sometimes it's actually in the very small and shy asteroids. So this is what I have for you for this week. Thank you so much for listening. I do hope that this horoscope was useful and helpful to you in certain ways. If you'd like to support my channel and my growth of the channel, please like and share and subscribe. And also, if you'd like to support me, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. Thank you, everyone. Wishing you a blessed and wonderful week. And don't forget to set a new seed of intention for everyone else, for the world as well, not just for the self, at the time of this Leo new moon. Thank you again. Until next time. Bye for now.